right. So today I am so excited to have a guest with me that is probably one of the most resilient guys I've ever met, because you're not going to believe the story that he's going to tell you. So I would love to have everybody welcome Jason to the Energized Podcast.
Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah. Well, as I said, you're probably one of the most resilient men I've ever met because of your extraordinary story. So why don't we just dive right into your story and tell everybody what happened to you on one ordinary day when you thought you'd go skydiving?
Yeah, so I was a person who skydived pretty much every weekend, and had two great jumps that day, uneventful, landed without any problems. And on the third jump of the day, I'm coming on into a landing on a field I had landed on hundreds of times before, and then suddenly a wind hits me from behind, picks me up, and then slams me through a fence and into the side of an airplane hangar going 30 miles an hour. So life changed immediately when I hit the side of that building. I black out from the catastrophic injuries. The first people on the scene, which were about 50 yards away, packing their parachutes for the next plane load, run up and they see blood coming out of my mouth and my nose and body parts bent in directions they shouldn't ordinarily be bent in. And they try to figure out how am I doing. And I said, don't call anyone. I'll be okay. Just give me a minute. And I was blacked out, but that was my default mode of, if you say you're okay, you're going to get up and everything's going to be fine. Almost like when you slip on ice and you hit the ground, and if you think if you get up right away, everything's going to be okay. So I think that was my mentality. And luckily they didn't listen to what I said. They called 911. Flight for Life helicopter picked me up, flew me to the nearest level 1 trauma center 50 miles away. And the major injury was when I hit the side of that building on the left side, 10 of my 12 ribs break, and they hit my heart with such impact. My heart shot out of where it normally sits, called the pericardial sac, ends up on the right side of my chest and all twisted up. And doctors later tell my family that we've never done this surgery on anyone before because no one ever makes it alive with this injury. Usually when your heart moves that far across your chest, it disconnects and you die instantly at the accident scene. So they couldn't believe I was alive to make it to the hospital, and they intubated me into a coma for 8 days. Besides the heart, 20 broken bones, 3 other organs they had to fix. And so after 8 days, I woke up from the coma. And when I was woken up from the coma, I knew I hit the building. That was in my mind. But because I blacked out, I had no idea what the injuries I had was. I remember waking up for a brief second. I hear rotors from the helicopter. I don't remember seeing the inside of the helicopter at all. I just remember hearing it. I don't know if they put me back out or they put me under. I don't know any of that. The coma was, it wasn't like, I didn't know how long I was in that coma because I asked that when I got out, and my family's like, oh, you were under for 8 days. So when you're in the coma, my mind was very active. And I was visited by hundreds and hundreds of nightmares, and they all kind of had a similar theme in that people were with me, unwilling to help me, and they were leaving me to die because I knew I was in a terrible shape. So you were kind of being tempted to give up and take the easy way out, and no one would know if you gave up. But so I had to fight through all of that. From always hearing that bad news over and over again to say, I can get through this. I'm not sure what's in the future, but I'm going to keep fighting and see what happens. And then eventually, I got so sick of all those nightmares. I yelled out in the dream. I said, if you're going to kill me, you better kill me now. Because if you're not going to kill me now, you're not going to kill me later, because I'm coming back, and I'm coming back strong from all this. And that's when the light starts hitting me in the eyes when I'm waking up, and the light is coming through my hospital window. So I kind of open my eyes, and at first it feels like someone's standing on my chest, and that's from the heart surgery. Well, I didn't know that at the time. And so I had a hard time breathing. I was just kind of taking the littlest possible breath, because also my lungs were collapsed, so they weren't working quite correctly at the time. And when I get woken up, there's somebody, and it's the doctor, who's over me, and he's looking down at me, and he says, "You're lucky to be alive." That's how I wake up. And I reach up my hand and I give him a high five, and he looks at me like, who are you and what are you doing? So apparently he doesn't get a lot of high fives from people that just woken up from comas. But I was celebrating because I just got out of that coma, and that coma was such a horrible place. So I was just like, I'm finally out of this coma. I don't know where I am, and I don't know what's the future, but I'm in a better place now, waking up.
Well, yeah. So after you woke up, I'm sure everything wasn't hunky dory. So tell everybody probably the journey you went through after you woke up.
Yeah. When I wake up, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with me because that doctor quickly leaves the room and I see tubes coming out of my chest and my stomach all draining blood. I see gauze all over, casts on my arms. There's all these machines encircling my bed and monitoring. I have no idea what. And so for the next 2.5 months, I just have to lay there and not move because of all of my injuries and broken bones. So I would say it's the hardest thing I ever went through, but it's the best thing I ever went through because it takes away all the distractions out of your life. And you start focusing on the life you were living and whether you're happy and things you're missing out on because, you're living at 100 miles an hour all the time, whether it's career wise, whether it's skydiving. And I was missing things. I wasn't spending enough time with family and friends. And I was just like, man, I was missing so much. And I really need to build myself back into a better version of myself. And you beat yourself up a lot. I was also going through a lot of pain at the time, which kind of is super difficult and can certainly change your personality, not in a positive way when you're going through that. But my family was there every single day. Luckily, my parents were retired. They relocated from the East Coast out to Denver to be with me every day. And one of the amazing parts, with that is I got to spend 105 days in a row with my parents. And I wouldn't have had that much of time to spend with my parents unless this accident happened. So as much as people look at it as like, well, that's a terrible thing, I would say the accident was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I don't know where I would be today without it. So I thank, God every day that I went through this because it was a necessary part of my life and it became a very positive influence in my life. And I found that I could help people in a way I couldn't have helped them before unless I went through it first. It's like you have to go through the toughest time in your own life to understand someone else going through the toughest time in their own lives.
And I really love how you had to change your perspective, or it did change your perspective, because I mean, a lot of people going through something like that, I can just see them being angry or bitter or just kind of dragging themselves through life. I love what you said, that you were going to build yourself into a better person. Is that how you said it?
Yeah, a better version of myself was, and I think so often we're distracted by so many things in our lives. We sometimes don't reassess where we are in our lives and how we are because we're so busy and pulled in all these different directions. And it gave me a time where I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything else but reassess myself. And I think there's also when you're in isolation, it's easy to come up with these ideas of how you're going to change your life. Execution is the difficult part because then all of these distractions flood back into your life and you say, well, am I going to execute the things I said I was going to execute when I was laying in that bed? I always say I have a reminder every day because when I get dressed, I have a scar that goes from the top of my chest all the way to my belt line where they opened me up and put the heart back and fixed all those other organs. And I look at myself every day and go, are you living the life you said you wanted to live? Are you executing on the things you said you wanted to execute when you're laying in that bed? And not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day you're not going to be pulled off track, but you realize you don't want to turn one day of being pulled off track into 10 or into a month, into a year. And I think that happens so often to people, not on purpose, but you make all these small decisions every single day. And if you don't check and reassess where you are every day, you can go so far off track because you don't realize you're doing it.
What would you say would be a couple things that you do totally different now since the accident?
Yeah. Well, I would say that I check in with people a lot more than I did and really express how I feel about them. Because when I woke up from that coma, I thought, I'm not super expressive as an emotional person. I wasn't. And I said, I could have died and all these people, whether they're friends or family, wouldn't have known how important they are to me because I don't say that all the time. Now I would think that, but I wouldn't express it verbally. And I became much more verbal in terms of expressing what people mean to me and how important they are to me so they know instead of just keeping it inside. I think that was a huge part. And I think just when I always have a rule, it's like when you think of somebody, then you have to get in contact with them, whether it's a text or a phone call or something like that. Because before I would think of that person and it would just pass. And I was just like, people need to know how important they are to me. And they wouldn't know unless I was expressing that. So that was a big change in my life for sure.
Wow. Well, now I want you to tell everybody what you do in your work life.
I'm a director of operations in a fintech or financial services firm. So we trade mutual funds, ETFs for retirement plans and wealth management. So I manage a team, and kind of going into when you asked me how I changed as well, from pre-accident to post-accident. I think as a manager, I was really a taskmaster before the accident, and so much was always going on. It was always about the business, and it doesn't mean I didn't have conversations, non-business lives, with people I managed, but I think I made it much more of a point afterwards that the personal aspect was really important to managing people. So I think one of the things I instituted was when I have a one-on-one with somebody that I manage, the first thing I do is not talk business. I talk about their personal lives. How are they doing, whether it's business related or just their life outside of work? Because I think it's important to understand where they're coming from, things they're going through, that are not work related, which could affect their work related life. And I'm just interested in their life outside of that. So I think that was a huge change. I'm much closer to the people I manage than I was before. And as far as work wise, I think they're far more productive because they realize it's not about just me checking in when I need an answer to a question or project they're working on. It's about, I care about them. It's not like I didn't care about them before. I did, but I didn't express it in the way I should have.
Mhm. And what a great lesson for all leaders, because it is so vitally important to let people know how valuable they are and to verbalize that to them. So let me ask you in one word, what does it mean to be an energized leader?
And engaged. I think it's so important with so many things going on as a leader. When one of your reports comes to you, or somebody from a different department, and they're trying to solve a problem, it's so easy to be thinking about three other things that are going on in the workplace that aren't related to the person that's coming to speak to you. And I think it's so important to tune that out and make that person you're speaking to a priority, so they know you care about their problem and it's just not something that you're disregarding or not paying attention to. You need to be locked into that person so they know that you're trying to help them and solve their problem rather than everything else that's going on that can be distracting you.
What does an energized or positive workplace culture look like to you?
Yeah. I think people expressing their opinion, problem solving, taking ownership of what's going on. I think a healthy environment is when whether it's a team meeting or when people are saying, well, I'm solving this problem and I'll take this on. It's not, because I think in an unhealthy environment, you'll see people just try to pass everything off on the person managing their group or not wanting to take ownership on it. And when people are, you don't even have to sign things out. People are taking things off your plate that they're experts on because they can do a great job at this, and they don't have to be prompted. In terms of problem solving, I think is huge as well.
Good. All right. So when your leadership battery is running low, what's your go to recharge strategy?
Yeah, I think getting out of the office and going for a hike, going for a long run, just not having not a phone with me. I don't not no distractions, just to completely disconnect from what was going on. And for me, that kind of re-energizes me to go back to that afterwards. But everyone needs a break sometime. I think just we get so accustomed to now being on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's really not a healthy place to constantly be in that place. So I think getting completely away from it and doing something I enjoy, and those are things that I enjoy doing.
I remember years and years ago, my first job out of college, it was in a hospital, and I considered myself the office martyr. I was in charge of all the payroll. I was in charge of staffing all the nurses, every single shift, every single department. I reported to 5 different people. And I just made it a point to let everybody know I did not take a break today. In fact, I was so busy, I didn't even take a lunch. And when I look back now, it's like, what a dumb thing to do. I mean, I was not helping myself. I mean, I needed to take a break. And so it's very important that we learn how to unplug, or as you said, disconnect. So that is so important because it ends up re-energizing you to go back in, and you're going to be more productive and you're going to be happier.
Absolutely.
If you could go back in time and change anything as a leader, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say, kind of going back to the other point with just being the taskmaster and it all being business all the time, and changing to being more personal and making sure that people are okay and checking in with them. I think people feel so much pressure. There was somebody that worked on my team that was having a child, and they were reluctant to tell me that they wanted to take off to have a child and take parental leave. And they're like, but there's so much going on and everything's going. I was like, that's not your job. Your job is to take care of your child. That's why you're working. Because I said, don't worry about it. We'll figure this out. It's our job to figure it out. It's my job to figure out covering for you while you're gone. This isn't something you need to be concerned about. I want you to take care of your spouse and take care of your child. And that's the most important thing. Do not ever feel guilt for doing this. This person does a great job on our team and they feel so responsible for taking care of our customers, but it kind of took it over the line in that, no, you have a personal life. Your family is the most important thing. And I wanted them to understand that, and that this wasn't going to be held against them. I'm like, no, I'm so happy you're having a kid. I was like, this is an amazing part of your life. I was like, you only get these 3 months to spend in that time period with your child. Take every single moment you can, because you won't have it again with this kid. So I think that was, I wanted to, make sure that they understood my stance
Yeah.
on, and they should never feel bad about what they were doing. They weren't leaving us. They were living such an important part of their life.
Well, kudos to you for really emphasizing to him what was important. I remember when I think it was my first child, and I took a leave, and in fact, they wanted me to come back early, and I understand that. So that's really amazing that you just made them feel like they didn't need to feel guilty, and what they were doing was super, super important. All right. So how do you energize your team during tough, stressful seasons?
Yeah. I think first it's important to acknowledge you're going through a difficult time and not hide that. And one of the things I always say is like, guys, we've done this before. We've gotten through this before. So it's one encouragement to say, we've built a foundation on going through hard things, and every day is not going to be a great day. We are capable of doing this, and we're going to get through it, and we'll be on the other side, and we'll laugh about it when it's over. But you guys are completely capable of this. This is what we train for. This is why we're here. This is why we are a great team, because we're going to get through this difficult time. But I think acknowledging is 100%. Don't pretend like it's not happening. It's like,
Right.
we'll get through this.
Jason, you sound like such a great cheerleader for your team.
I try to be, and I think that's part of it's from the accident. I
Yeah.
think it was easy before the accident sometimes to have tunnel vision. Go, this we're not going to get. This is really hard. I'm so sick of this. All these hours and everything over and over again, and going through that in the accident, going like, well, I've been through tougher. It's not like I'm not going to get through this. And I think letting those people know, because I think it's easy to forget that you've done great things before and you're just concentrated on the right now, and just to remind them that the abilities they've done before, remind them of difficult things they've done previously and done great, as an encouragement to get through this tough time, and they're fully capable of getting through it.
It's so good. Celebrating what they've done in the past is a great reminder that, excuse me, that they're going to come through and they're going to do it again. And wouldn't you say that going through the accident taught you how to be resilient? And don't you think that carries over into working with your team on helping them to become resilient?
For sure. I guess I was resilient before, but this was the ultimate test of being resilient. I built before the accident allowed me to survive the accident. And part of my responsibility is managing people is to help people build their foundation. And people, while they're going through it, aren't generally thanking you for building their foundation, because the reality is it's uncomfortable and it's hard. But you have to push people little at a time to expand what they're capable of, to ultimately get to the next level. And now 10 years, 20 years down the line, they'll thank you, because like, I don't know where I would be unless you pushed me forward. And sometimes I wasn't willing to really push forward, and you kind of just kept on pushing. But that's the key to expanding your knowledge, expanding your career. It's like you're going to be in uncomfortable situations that you're not sure you could take on at the time, but you're going to have to push forward, and that's what's going to get you to where you want to be.
I usually tell people this: what you're doing today, whether you like it or not, is preparing you for what you're going to go through tomorrow. What you're doing today is preparing you for the doors you're going to go through. What you're doing today is the experiences that you're going through are preparing you for the experiences you're going to go through tomorrow, the people you're going to meet. And so, yeah, being very resilient by just pushing through with the experiences that you're going through is preparing you for what you're going to do tomorrow. Right now,
Absolutely.
you just mentioned a couple minutes ago about we're going to laugh at this when it's all over. So, my next question is, how do you see laughter in the workplace playing a very important role?
For stress relief, every time I have one-on-one with someone, I always try to make it, there's some part of it's going to be funny. We'll talk about, something that happened in the world, or something that's happening with their lives, and try to make them laugh. When we're, in the office and walking by each other, it people are realize that it's okay to joke back and forth, and that's part of life, and that's how we get through this difficult times, because there's going to be extremely stressful times. And when it's not stressful, we need to make each other laugh, and enjoy each other's company. I think that's a really important part of the workplace too. It's like you're gonna perform so much better if you have a happy team of people that like to talk to each other, that enjoy to talk about experiences they're going through. That's a huge part of it, because you're at work so many hours a day. You might as well try to enjoy it as much as you possibly can, because there's parts you're not going to enjoy. But when you have the opportunity to interact with people and enjoy life, there's no better thing than to laugh with people.
I one more question, and that is this. If you could give every leader in the whole world one piece of advice, Jason, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, you have the ability and the responsibility, really, to help people in a way. Your job is beyond yourself. I would say, when you have a purpose beyond yourself, you have strength beyond your own strength, because you have the opportunity, on someone on your team, or beyond your team, to help them in their career to advance, which could mean, more money, more responsibility, a better lifestyle for their family. And then also, that's responsibility. You can turn them off, and turn them in a wrong way, if you're not a good manager. So you have tremendous power, and use it in a positive way to make that person's life better, build their foundation, build their career, help them in any way that you can.
I love that. That's amazing. But we do have to end with the fun question. And the fun question is, in the last, let's say, several months, maybe a year, what is a favorite book, movie, or a gadget that you've seen or purchased?
Yeah. Just 2 weeks ago, I saw a movie called, and it's on HBO now. It's The Dark Wizard. It's about a guy named Dean Potter, and it's a four-part series. And in the early 2000s, and he passed away in 2015. He's a rock climber, and he was really cutting edge, and built a way for people in the future, like Alex Honnold. People are super familiar with Free Solo and Alex Honnold, but this guy, there wouldn't be an Alex Honnold without a Dean Potter. So from the outside, you would always see this, all his amazing feats, whether it's in climbing magazines, or YouTube, or whatever the case may be. And you have a certain image of people from the outside, because all you see is these amazing feats. But this film delves much deeper into his journals and things he was going through. And he was going through extremely hard times, whether it was mental health issues, or battling things that you didn't realize existed from the outside. Some of the lesson is that you see people, and you see just the amazing feats that they're going through, but you don't see behind the scenes the difficult parts of these journeys that people are going through. And I think it's so easy to look at someone else and say, well, they had all this success, and it must have been easy for them, or they didn't go through it, when the reality is they're just like us, and they're going through the difficult times that we are as well. So I think it's encouraging to see someone like that life wasn't perfect. It was a battle every day. It encourages us, the battles we're going through every day, that we need to go through to get through it. And I kind of reflect that on my accident, where they see, the incredible accident, and then 364 days later, I raced in a triathlon, which they said I would never run again. But the reality of it is, most people don't see all of the days that it took to build up to that, or the days that I was in pain, or the days that, there was rehabilitation for 8 hours a day that I didn't want to do every day, because it was incredibly painful. But they just see the success on the end. But the reality is, we're all going through that daily battle with, to get to that end goal, whatever that may be. And I think we need to recognize that, there are lots of days that are going to be incredibly hard, but we need to fight through that to get to that end goal, whatever that may be.
Have you tell us about the triathlon? Because You were told you could probably never run again. So, how did you push through with that?
Well, when I woke up from the coma, it was about a week after I woke up. I was alone at night in my bed, just with beeping noises from the machines. And I said, I need to choose a goal if I'm going to get through this. And I had raced triathlons before. And I said, okay, if I race in a triathlon, it means my upper body works, my heart works, my lower body works. So that would be something, it means I can actually do something or be more like myself again. And that's the thought process. So eventually, when I finally 3 months later, when they gave me the okay to put weight on my legs for the first time, the first question I asked to the doctor was, how many more months before I get to run again? Like 3 or 4? And the doctor spits his coffee out of his mouth and he's like, I don't understand. I don't think we properly explained the severity of your injuries. You're probably never going to run again. And this is the guy that fixed my pelvis and my leg. And he didn't realize I had the goal to race in a triathlon. So instead of saying this is going to crush me, I'm like, I'm proving this guy wrong. And so it started off with the first day I tried to run, and this was about 6 months after the accident. It was more like a waddle than a run, and I was dragging my one leg behind me. But I just went 50 feet, and I go, okay, tomorrow you go 100 feet, the next day 150 feet. And then about 3 months before the race, I was only running a couple hundred feet. I couldn't swim at this point because I had additional surgeries on my elbow, and I hadn't ridden my bike outside. But the one thing my mom clued me into, because every time I talked to my mom, she thought I was going to hurt myself again, and I never kind of understood that. I mean, she's my mom, so she always, she was concerned, but no one ever told me how fast I should recover. And so she clues me in when I'm talking to her on the phone one day. I said, Mom, I ran for the first time, and she said, you're going to hurt yourself. You shouldn't be doing that. What I didn't tell her was I started a month earlier and I started to run. I wanted to build up before I told her because I didn't want to scare her. And then she says, they told us you weren't going to walk for at least 6 months. And this is a 6 month mark. I'm already starting to run. And they said none of this should be possible. And I didn't realize it was going to take me 6 months to walk. I started walking at the 3 month mark. So I said, well, if I'm doing everything twice as fast as anyone ever expected, and they said I would never, run again, what am I capable of beyond this? And initially when I was laying in that bed, I was like, it's going to be 2 years before I do this triathlon. So I was like, if I'm going twice as fast, why limit myself? I'm going to try to race this year. I realized a race I've done before lands 1 day short of the 1 year anniversary. So that became obsession. I was like, I'm going to beat the 1 year mark, show this guy I could run and swim and bike and everything. And it was also a thank you to all the people that had helped me in the hospital, because I thought that was so important, because I see so many terrible things in a hospital every day, and not every person makes that alive that they're helping. And I was like, I want to show them one thing that's positive, where they can see all of the work they put into me paid off immensely. So it became a responsibility. I was like, I want to go back to the hospital when I go and visit them, say, look what you were able to do with me. And so that was a huge part of it as well. So I signed up for the race. I have 3 months to train. Do I know it's possible? Absolutely not. Because at this point I can run like a couple hundred feet, and I hadn't swam, I haven't biked. So 3 months go by like this. Race day comes, torrential rains are falling. It's the end of June in Colorado, but it's 46 degrees and the rains come down. It's freezing. Half the race field doesn't even bother showing up because the conditions are so bad. But I was like, I have 1 day to race under that 1 year anniversary. I'm doing it. So jump in the water, 59 degrees. So it's cold. It's like someone slaps you in the face when you put your face down in that 59-degree water. And so I'm swimming. I got panic attacks. My heart's going like over 200 beats a minute. I'm hyperventilating. And I turn to my back and I'm just like, all right, am I having a heart attack? That was a real thought I was having. And I was like, you know what? You've been through harder. Just relax for a second. And I was like, just swim 100 yards and see what happens. So I swim 100 yards and all of a sudden my heart's down to like 195 beats a minute. And I'm still hyperventilating a little bit less. And I go, okay, swim another 100 yards, see what happens. Now it's down to 180 beats a minute. And then I do that one more time. And after that, I go, stop asking yourself the question, just go. And I swim, finish the swim, get on my bike. And at this point, the rain's blowing sideways. It's not even coming straight down anymore. And halfway through the bike, so you're shivering cold because you're soaked from the swim. 46 degrees is cold, especially when you're wet, because you lose all the insulating properties of your body. And at one point I look down, I go, I don't really feel my feet on the pedals anymore. And it's because I lost all feeling in my feet. So I'm like, well, you might as well just keep riding. What else are you going to do? And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, my hands are attached to the handlebars, but I can't feel them either because they're completely numb. So I'm just like, well, just keep pedaling. And then a third of the bike left, my chain starts popping off the back. And the only gear I could find that works is the biggest gear on the bike. And I'm weakened at this point. I'm not fully back to what I'm capable of. I was certainly weakened in this race. Because I was only able to train for 3 months. But I get to the end of the bike and I slip my shoes on because I can't even use my fingers at this point. They're totally numb. So I just jam my feet into the shoes, and the doctor's voice comes into my head like, Jason, you're never going to run again. So I was like, well, I have 6.2 miles to prove this guy wrong. And I started running, and I didn't stop until I went through the finish line. And I was just like, man, I don't want to fail for all these people that helped me along the way, because I want to show them the kindness they gave to, pay off in a way that says maybe not every outcome is this good, but because you decided to help me when I was at my weakest and I was in a really bad situation, great things can happen.
Jason, I'm so glad that we're ending this podcast with such an inspirational story. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. I mean, when you finished that triathlon, what did you think?
I kind of, what's next? I was just like, as much as there was unknown and fear that that I could finish it, because I failed all along the way during training, meaning not every day, but when I test myself, I go, you can't do the race today. And I would have to change my plan. So testing myself along the way made me change my plan so I could eventually be successful on race day. But I kind of finished that and said, well, there's a lot of thank yous I need to go and give at this point, because I kind of gave someone a stopping point where I can go back to the hospitals and say thank you for doing what you did. But more than that, I would say, like, thank you to the person that helped you is not enough, because my greatest thank you to all the people that helped me was to take what they gave me, the generosity that they gave me, and pass that forward to help other people. And that's my greatest payback to all those people that had helped me. And I kept going, and I said, okay, I haven't climbed mountains again. They said I would never do this. Let me figure out how to way to climb mountains again. So it's always pushing forward and figuring out, because there's not always an easy plan ahead when you're about to help people. Well, how do you do that? I'm not really sure. And then that's a whole journey unto itself. And then whether that's speaking in front of crowds to help them, or it's one-on-one help that I give people, or I see someone on the street that has a brace on their leg, and I just go up to and say, how are you doing? And I don't tell them my story. I want to hear their story and just say, well, what are you going through? And how can I help you in any way to get you through that? And that's the greatest gift given to me, to help people in a way I couldn't have helped people before unless I went through this accident. So it was an absolute blessing to go through this.
Wow, so incredible. Did the doctor ever say anything to you after you did that? After you did the triathlon?
Well, I went back to the doctor. I think it was probably 18 months or 2 years afterwards for a follow-up, because I had multiple orthopedic doctors with as many injuries as I had. So I saw him. He said, well, why don't you come in again and see me? So he did more x-rays, and we were talking, and he asked me, he's like, well, what do you do on an everyday basis athletically? Because he knew I was into, biking and running and swimming and all that. And I kind of told him exactly what I do on an everyday basis. And he's like, that shouldn't be possible. Are you in tremendous pain every day? I was like, I mean, not really. I just built up to it. And he's like, you know what? If you keep on going at this rate, you're going to race in a triathlon again. And I said, Doc, I raced on the 364-day mark. I was like, I already raced 3 times, and I've already been doing all this other stuff. And he looked at me with this crazy look. He's like, because I never asked permission to do it, because people always had this negativity, or like, you're going to get hurt again, or something bad's going to happen. I was like, you know what? How about if something good happens? And I will figure out my limits. I'm not going to allow someone to dictate what my limits are. I'll figure it out. Eventually I'll fail, and that's okay. But I didn't want to be 10 years down the line and say, well, if I tried or didn't listen to the doctor, I'd be so much further than I am now. I was like, I don't want that to happen. I'll figure it out. I might fail, and that's okay, but I'll never figure out where failure is unless I'm willing to press it to the limit. So the doctor was super surprised, and I said, Doc, you did an amazing job on me. Thank you so much. I wouldn't be here without. I was like, but you have to understand, words mean something when you talk to them. I was like, when you told me I'd never run again, to me, it motivated me more. But to other people, it could crush them. And you have to be careful with what those words are, because the reality is doctors spent very little time with you. And that's not a criticism. They only have so much time, but 5 minutes at a time. The people that really knew me were the physical therapists and the nurses because they were able to spend more time with me and they knew where I was coming from and what I was doing and pushing them forward. And that was a big leadership example as well. Is like, we're going to push these forward. I'm going to get all these people together. I'm going to tell them what the goal is. Here's what we're shooting for, and this is what I need from you to help me get there. And I need your expertise. And everyone did their part in this, comeback. And I couldn't have done it without all these people coming into it and buying into it. And what I was saying along the way, they seemed to think I was absolutely crazy. They were like, there's no way this is possible. You're not going to walk out of the hospital. You're going home in a wheelchair. I proved them wrong. You're never going to race again. And, um, you know, amazing generosity from these people, but you had to make them believe. And I had to show them that what I said was true, was going to happen. And they saw my work ethic and what I was willing to do and the pain I was willing to go through to get to this. And then they started buying in and they would give me extra. I couldn't tell you how many people, therapists, that would say, I went home. I wasn't sure how to treat you because you have so many injuries. I went home last night and I cracked open my books from physical therapy school to help. And I was overwhelmed by that because I'm like, you worked 12 hours yesterday and you decided to go home and read your physical therapy book so you could come back the next day and help me. I was overwhelmed by the generosity that they put forward. But, I had to prove to them that I was worth putting all that extra work in, because there's lots of people I saw along the way that weren't willing, that would say no all the time when they were asked to do something in physical therapy. My rule is I say yes no matter what. I don't care how much it hurts, because yes, I could see how frustrated they were when they were trying to help people and those people weren't willing to go along with it. I was just like, well, I figure they're not trying to kill me, so I just say yes to everything and let's just go and see what happens. I trust them. So, and some of those people, those therapists and nurses, I still talk to today, years later, still keep in contact with them. They reach out to me so yeah, built some amazing relationships, and so humbled by how people were willing to help me. And sometimes I felt like I was like, I don't even deserve this help. I crashed into a building, but they didn't look at it that way.
Oh, Jason, what an incredible, incredible story. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I guess I can tell everybody that you are available for speaking for corporate events. You speak in a lot of churches. And so I will put your information in the show notes so that people can get a hold of you and they can have you come and inspire them.
Yeah, so happy to connect to people, and it's all about overcoming your greatest challenges, and there's a system to that, and that what I went through really allowed me to put into a framework to repeatedly go through the most difficult times you go through, and how you get through that every time. It's like, once you overcome the impossible once, you could overcome it again and again, and that's really what it's all about.
Hope someday a movie is made about you. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right.